Saipan, 1944. Japanese soldiers laughed at the strange American rifle 5 seconds later, that laughter turned into sheer panic. Section 1, The Landing at Video. November 20, 1943. Video Island, Tarawa Atoll. The sun has barely crested the horizon, yet the air already shimmers with heat rising off the pale coral sand. The distant thump of naval artillery rolls across the lagoon like a slow heartbeat. Spray from the battleship Maryland drifts over the landing craft as they advance in tight formation, engines growling, steel hulls rattling with every burst of Japanese counter-battery fire. Inside one of the Amtraks, Private First Class Daniel Deke Morton of the 2nd Marine Division wipes a thin film of salt and sweat from the stock of his M1 Garand. The rifle is still warm from the morning's pre-landing checks. Around him, Marines adjust their gear, tug on helmets, and stare at the shoreline ahead, now obscured by towering plumes of smoke kicked up by the Navy's bombardment. 30 seconds. The crew chief shouts over the engine noise. Morton clenches his jaw. He's trained for this moment for months, yet the enormity of it presses down like the humid Pacific air. He racks the bolt slightly, ensuring the 8-round end block clip is seated correctly. The familiar metallic ping from practice sessions echoes in his memory. His squad leader, Sergeant Will Harper, leans close. Remember short bursts, fast shots? They're dug in deep. Keep that Garand working. Morton nods. He knows the doctrine well enough. The semi-automatic M1 Garand is meant to give Marines overwhelming fire in close quarters, allowing them to shoot, move, and suppress faster than any bolt-action rifleman on Earth. But he's also read the intelligence briefings how Japanese officers laughed at American rifles during earlier encounters. Too heavy, too complicated, too wasteful, they claimed. 8 rounds, you'll burn through them before you hit anything, one captured officer had said. No one on this Amtrak is laughing now. The craft jolts violently as a shell lands nearby, sending a column of water into the air. Shrapnel clinks off the steel hull. Morton's pulse quickens. Ahead, the first wave has already hit the reef and stalled Marines forced to wait hundreds of yards under machine gun fire. The Amtrak lurches again, scraping coral. Then the ramp drops. Go. Move. Morton splashes into knee-deep water, boots grinding against crushed coral. Machine gun tracers whip across the lagoon in thin, angry red lines. Mortar rounds fall like hammers from the sky. The noise is overwhelming, rifles cracking, men shouting, Japanese heavy guns thundering from bunkers carved into the island's hardened coral ridges. The Marines advance in bounding movements, hugging the low water, using the Amtraks as momentary shield before pushing forward. Morton raises his Garand and fires his first shot at a muzzle flash from a pillbox slit. The recoil snaps into his shoulder clean, sharp, manageable. He fires again, and again, working the trigger as trained. Beside him, Harper shouts, "Keep it up. They can't match that volume." And it's true. Their opponents, the infantry of the Imperial Japanese Navy's Special Naval Landing Forces, fire Arisaka Type 38 bolt-action rifles, each requiring a full hand motion to chamber a new round. Every second counts. While Morton fires 3 shots, they fire 1. While Harper's squad sweeps an entire position, the Japanese struggle to cycle bolts in the thick humidity and drifting sand. A Marine to Morton's left drops to a knee, firing his Garand so quickly that it echoes like a small automatic weapon. The Japanese defenders, accustomed to the rhythm of bolt-action volleys, hesitate. Some duck instinctively, misjudging the source of the sudden barrage. Others stop firing momentarily, confused by the tempo. That hesitation is fatal. Morton's squad surges forward, closing the distance to a cluster of sandbagged positions. Plumes of sand explode as Japanese light machine guns kick in again. A Marine screams and falls face first into the water, but the others push past him, driven by momentum and survival instinct. Morton drops behind a half-submerged log and reloads, ping the empty clip ejects, the distinctive sound ringing across the chaos. He slams in a fresh clip and fires again, sweeping the bunker entrance. The rounds strike with deep, dull thuds into the wood and coral. Harper throws a grenade, the blast shaking the ground as smoke pours from the opening. That's it? Move in. They breach the bunker. Inside, the defenders lie stunned, one rifle still clutched in the hands of a young Japanese corporal. The bolt is half drawn back, frozen in the final motion of cycling to the next round. Morton stares at it for a moment. It feels like symbolism carved in steel. Outside, the battle rages on. Tracers burn overhead. Marines yell for corpsmen. The smell of cordite, diesel, and burning palm trees fills the air. But for the first time since hitting the beach, Morton feels something like clarity. The Garand isn't just a rifle. It's leverage. It's time compressed into firepower. And on a battlefield where every second is bought with blood, 8 rapid shots can decide whether a squad lives or dies. Behind the next ridge, darker shapes move. Japanese reinforcements. Their sergeant shouts a command. Morton can't understand the words, but he understands the meaning. They're preparing a charge. Morton plants his feet, levels his rifle, and prepares to meet them. Section 2, The First Clash. November 20, 1943. Video Island, Tarawa Atoll. The ridge ahead erupts with movement, dark silhouettes rising from trenches carved into the coral. Morton narrows his eyes against the glare. Japanese infantry, helmets glinting under the harsh sun, sprint down the slope with bayonets fixed and rifles clenched tight against their chests. The shouts of their sergeant sharp, commanding cut through the roar of battle. Harper calls out, "Incoming! Form a line. Make every shot count." Marines scramble behind fragments of seawall and shattered coral outcroppings. Morton kneels beside the half-submerged log, pulse racing, breath hot in his throat. He can feel the energy shifting this isn't the grinding advance of Marines against fixed bunkers. This is momentum coming straight at them. Controlled chaos. The first Japanese soldier appears over the crest, rifle raised, bayonet gleaming. Morton doesn't hesitate. He fires once. The man falls instantly, collapsing forward into the sand. Morton shifts slightly, sighting in on the next. Fire. Shift. Fire. The Garand bucks rhythmically, a steady cadence against the rising thunder of the charge. 3 shots. 4. 5. To his left, Lance Corporal Jimmy Reeves yells, "They're bunching up. Keep pouring it on." His own Garand spits fire in rapid succession, shell casings bouncing off coral with metallic pings. The Japanese infantry squeeze their triggers, crack chamber crack, each bolt cycle costing them fractions of seconds they can't afford. Their shots kick up geysers of sand around the Marine line, but the volume simply isn't enough to break the defense. Morton fires again and again, feeling the rifle heat beneath his hands. His 8th shot echoes with a sharp, satisfying thump. Empty. Ping. The end block clip ejects, arcing into the sunlight. He slaps in another. The motion is fluid now, almost instinctive. The rifle's bolt snaps forward with a metallic bite, feeding a fresh round. For a moment, Morton catches a glimpse of a Japanese corporal, crouched low, cycling his bolt frantically. The man's face twists in frustration as he struggles to keep up with the American tempo. His rifle jerks as he chambers around the movement, large, conspicuous, time-consuming. Morton squeezes off 2 shots. The corporal falls backward, disappearing behind the ridge. Morton mutters under his breath, "Should VE never laughed at this rifle." A grenade arcs through the air. "Incoming!" Harper shouts. The grenade lands short, sending coral fragments slicing past Morton's cheek. Someone screams. Morton blinks sand from his eyes and keeps firing, the world narrowing into the iron sights of his rifle. The charge falters. The volume of marine fire, dozens of Garands firing in overlapping waves, devours the momentum of the assault. Morton sees confusion ripple through the attackers. Some slow their advance. Others dive behind shallow craters, desperately cycling their bolts to return fire, but the Garand allows no quarter. Pop 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 pop, Marines fire in staggered rhythm, each 8-round clip overlapping in a rolling wall of lead. The Japanese rifles, brave men wielding outdated tools against an avalanche, crack sporadically, their bolts clacking loudly between each round. In the chaos, Morton hears Harper's voice cutting through the noise, "They can't match this. Keep them pinned." Morton's rifle snaps upward, sights locking onto a machine gun team attempting to set up behind a wrecked palm trunk. He fires 3 rapid shots. The loader drops instantly. The gunner hesitates for a fraction of a second, too long a fatal pause. Morton's next shot hits home. Another ping echoes from his rifle. He reloads again. The Japanese sergeant rallies a final push, urging his men forward. Their courage is unmistakable. Morton feels a cold respect in the pit of his stomach. But courage doesn't cycle a bolt faster. Courage doesn't replace a low rate of fire. A Marine bar team opens up with roaring bursts, cutting through the approaching line. The ground shakes with the sustained, hammering rhythm of the Browning. Morton joins in, firing rapidly as the remnants of the assault fall back toward the ridge. The last few attackers dive into trenches, dragging wounded comrades with them. Then, suddenly, the battlefield shifts from chaos to eerie silence. Smoke drifts lazily across the coral flats. The surf hisses softly in the distance. Morton lowers his rifle, shoulders trembling with adrenaline. Reeves grins, breathless. "Hell of a thing, and they can't believe how fast this thing spits lead." Morton nods slowly. He glances at the bodies scattered across the sand, rifles still clutched in stiffening hands, bolts half-cycled. Tools of another era. Harper steps forward, tapping Morton's helmet. "Don't get comfortable. They're regrouping out there. And they'll be back." Morton wipes sweat and grime from his face, checking his ammunition. He has 3 full clips left. Enough maybe for the next push. But something deeper gnaws at him. The Japanese came expecting predictable American rifle fire, slow, methodical, bolt action. What they found instead was unprecedented speed. Unrelenting volume. And they weren't done learning that lesson. A distant bugle echoes across the ridge. Japanese officers shouting. Movement in the shadows. Morton chambers around, sights fixed on the next threat rising from the smoke. Section 3, Lessons Written in Blood. November 20, 1943. Video Island, Tarawa Atoll. The bugle's haunting notes fade into the smoke as Morton steadies his breathing. The battlefield, though momentarily still, feels coiled, waiting for the next violent release of energy. The sun climbs higher, casting stark shadows over the coral ridges. The heat intensifies, baking sweat and seawater into a gritty paste on the Marines' faces. Harper crouches beside Morton, peering over the shattered stump of a coconut tree. They're pulling back to reorganize. But they're not done. Not by a long shot. Morton nods. His heartbeat begins to settle into a manageable rhythm, though his fingers still twitch slightly from the adrenaline. He wipes the dust-covered stock of his Garand and checks the chamber habitual, comforting. Across the shallow depression where the first clash took place, a few wounded Japanese soldiers moan softly. Their comrades have withdrawn, but not far. Morton hears distant commands carried by the wind-short barks of authority, boots scuffing on coral, the metallic clatter of rifle bolts being checked and rechecked. Reeves settles next to Morton, scraping coral dust from his boots. "They hate that sound, you know," he says with a smirk. Morton blinks. "What sound?" Reeves taps his helmet. "That ping when the clip ejects. They think it means you're empty like an opening. They'll rush you if they hear it." Morton grimaces. "Seems like a dangerous gamble." "Only if you're slow," Reeves replies, sliding another clip into his pouch. "But we ain't slow." A nearby corpsman crawls past, tending to a Marine whose leg is soaked in crimson. The wounded man grips his Garand as if it were a lifeline. Morton watches the corpsman work, his hands precise even as shells boom in the distance. A faint tremor shakes the ground. Morton's head snaps up as a Japanese Type 92 heavy machine gun opens fire from a camouflaged bunker. Tracers rip across the sand, forcing several Marines to dive for cover. The Japanese have returned with heavier weapons. Harper growls, "There it is." They're probing for weak spots. Morton, flattened behind the log, spots the bunker, a narrow firing slit barely visible beneath strands of coconut fronds. Marines attempt to return fire, but the angle is tight. The heavy gun's chatter is relentless, chewing through coral, splintering driftwood. Morton inches forward and raises his Garand. He fires 2 quick shots, but they ricochet harmlessly off the reinforced bunker wall. Behind him, Sergeant Harper makes a decision. "We need to knock that thing out or we're stuck here." A demolition team moves into position, lugging satchel charges and flamethrowers. Morton covers them, firing at muzzle flashes from nearby trenches to keep heads down. His shots snap one after another, fast, accurate. With each squeeze of the trigger, he feels the rifle respond in perfect rhythm. Then he notices something. The Japanese riflemen returning fire are working furiously, but every movement is deliberate, slow, almost ceremonial. They slide the bolt up, pull it back, forward again, locking it down before firing. Morton watches one soldier cycle his bolt, his hands slipping in the sweat-soaked humidity. Another struggles as sand jams the action. Morton realizes he's firing 3 rounds in the time it takes them to fire 1. And they know it. Even from a distance, he can see the frustration twist their faces as American fire rains down faster than they can chamber fresh rounds. Some hesitate, unsure whether to reload or retreat. Others resort to wild, unaimed shots born of desperation. Morton thinks back to the intelligence briefings, how Japanese officers believed the Garand would waste ammunition and burden troops. How they claimed the Arisaka's simplicity and reliability made it superior. How they laughed. But there is no laughter now. Not here. Not in this crucible of coral and smoke and blood. The demolition team reaches the bunker. One Marine with a flamethrower unleashes a scorching jet of fire, the heat blooming outward with a roar. Another lobs a satchel charge into the firing slit. The explosion rocks the ridge, sending debris skyward in a violent plume. When the dust settles, the machine gun is silent. Harper shouts, "Advance," while they're shocked. "Move." Morton scrambles forward, climbing the scorched ridge. The Japanese defenders fall back into secondary trenches. Their sergeant orders them to fire. Rapid, urgent commands echo across the island. But rapid isn't possible. Morton sees it in real time. The Japanese attempt another coordinated volley, but their bold actions can't match the pace of the American advance. Each Marine's Garand fires in swift, cracking bursts. Pressure builds like a rising tide. Morton fires again, 3 shots in under 2 seconds. He reloads, the clip ejecting with its trademark ping. He hears Reeves beside him imitate the sound playfully. Ping means bring the pain. As he slams home another clip and continues firing, the Japanese line buckles. Their rate of fire collapses under the assault. A group of riflemen attempt a bayonet charge, but it's short-lived. Morton and his squad cut them down before they cross half the distance. The sound is overwhelming, a symphony of controlled violence, the Garand at its heart. Morton pauses only when his rifle's barrel smokes visibly. He breathes hard, eyes scanning for the next threat. Reeves murmurs, "They thought we'd fight slow." Morton nods. They were wrong. On the ridge above them, a Japanese survivor pulls a small notebook from his tunic, perhaps a diary. He stares at the Americans below, expression unreadable, before disappearing into the deeper trenches. Morton doesn't know it yet, but notes like these recovered after the battle will reveal a truth the Japanese never expected to write: their rifles fire too fast. Too many shots. We cannot match it. The battle is far from over. But the lesson has begun. Section 4, The Diary and the Deadlock. November 21, 1943. Video Island, Tarawa Atoll. Night has settled over Video like a suffocating shroud. The fires still burning across the ridgeline flicker against the low clouds, turning them a deep, sinister orange. The island smells of cordite, smoke, and salt carried in by the incoming tide. Morton sits in a shallow foxhole, adjusting his helmet strap as he listens to distant Japanese voices echoing through the debris fields. Harper moves through the line, checking each man. "Stay sharp. They love night attacks," he murmurs. "They come silent, close, trying to negate our range advantage." Morton taps the receiver of his M1 Garand, feeling the warmth left over from hours of firing. "They can try," he mutters softly. Reeves, lying on his stomach nearby, chuckles. "They will try, buddy. These guys don't quit." The Japanese defenders, exhausted, battered, but unbroken, remain entrenched along the island's last defensive pockets. They've watched American firepower tear through their ranks. They've seen machine gun nests and pillboxes evaporate under naval bombardment. And yet, their doctrine remains unchanged: fight to the last man, close the distance, make it personal, make it brutal. Morton knows that if they can force melee engagements, the Garand's advantage shrinks dramatically. A bayonet or grenade in close quarters is the great equalizer, the nightmare every Marine harbors. A quiet rustling pulls his attention. Lieutenant Carter approaches, holding an object wrapped in cloth. He kneels beside Morton, revealing what lies inside: a small, weathered notebook, its edges charred, retrieved from a fallen Japanese NCO on the ridge earlier that day. Carter flips to a page and reads in a low voice, "Their rifles fire too quickly. We cannot match the tempo. No time to breathe. No time to return accurate fire. Their bullets come like rain." Morton swallows. He had seen men freeze on the field earlier, overwhelmed not by courage but by the sensation of drowning in rapid American fire. Carter turns another page. We thought them wasteful. But they waste nothing. Every shot finds a man. Reeves whistles softly. Guess they finally figured it out. But the lieutenant's expression is somber. Don't mistake this for praise, he says. These notes, they're fear. And fear makes men desperate. Before Morton can respond, a flare bursts overhead with a harsh hiss, flooding the battlefield in stark white light. Shadows dart along the perimeter. Harper's voice cuts through the night, they're coming. Get ready. Morton shoulders his rifle just as the first wave emerges from the smoke. Japanese infantry moving swiftly, crouched low, clutching rifles with bayonets glinting. Some carry grenades. Others wield long Type 30 bayonets fixed on Arisaka's, the steel reflecting the cold flare's glow. A chilling battle cry erupts from their ranks, banzai. Morton's pulse spikes. His finger tightens on the trigger, the first shot cracks. Then another. Then dozens. The Marine line unleashes a blizzard of semi-automatic fire. The Garands ignite the darkness with muzzle flashes, each one a staccato burst of light and thunder. Morton fires rapidly 6 shots in just a few seconds, sweeping across the charging line, targeting shapes rather than faces, movement rather than detail. Ping. The clip ejects. Morton reloads instantly. Beside him Reeves fires repeatedly, muttering a nervous mantra under his breath. Stay back, stay back, stay back. Harper calls out firing adjustments, his voice calm but firm. Left side. They're massing left. Morton pivots. The Japanese surge again, refusing to yield. Several reach within 30 yards, far too close for comfort. Morton fires at a soldier lunging forward with a grenade. The man drops mid-stride, the explosive rolling harmlessly into a crater. A Japanese officer charges with a drawn sword, illuminated like a specter in the flare light. Harper's Garand drops him with 2 sharp shots. Still they come. The Marines fire non-stop, operating at a tempo no bolt-action rifleman could dream of matching. The Garands roar, ejecting clip after clip in metallic punctuation. Japanese rifles return fire, but their shots are irregular single cracks spaced out by frantic bolt cycles, magnified by exhaustion and darkness. Morton reloads again, clip in, bolt forward just as a Japanese soldier dives behind a log 10 yards ahead. The soldier rises, pulling back the bolt of his Arisaka. Morton fires first. The man collapses backward, rifle slipping from his hands. Morton exhales shakily. They really thought we couldn't fire fast, he whispers, almost to himself. Reeves, still firing, responds between shots, and now they know. The charge finally breaks. Survivors retreat into the trenches, dragging wounded comrades behind them. The flare burns out, plunging the battlefield into deep darkness once more. Silence returns except for the soft moans of wounded men and the distant rumble of artillery from the lagoon. Morton lowers his Garand, the barrel smoking faintly. Harper moves down the line. Hold your positions. They'll try again before dawn. Morton rests the rifle on his knee. The diary lies beside him in the dirt, its pages fluttering slightly in the night breeze. Reeves whispers, if they write more tonight, it'll be the same thing. Their rifles fire too fast. Morton looks out across the darkness, the island scarred, smoldering, but still fiercely contested. He whispers back, tomorrow they'll learn it all over again. Section 5, Saipan and the Shattering of a Myth. June 16, 1944. Saipan, Marianas Islands. The jungle presses in like a living wall, humid, tangled, alive with the buzzing of insects and the distant thump of artillery. Morton moves carefully through the foliage, sweat trickling down his spine. The air smells of wet earth, rotting palm fronds, and cordite drifting from the ridges the Marines assaulted earlier that morning. This is a different battlefield than video, wider, denser, louder. Tarawa was a knife fight on open coral, Saipan is a rolling brawl through ravines, forests, and jagged volcanic bluffs. But the enemy is the same, determined, relentless, and increasingly desperate. Morton passes a group of Marines positioned behind a stone terrace. One of them calls out, "2nd Division pushing into the valley." Intel says they're massing for a big counterattack. Reeves snorts, adjusting his helmet. They're always massing for a counterattack. They mean a big one, the Marine repeats grimly. Whole units pulled from the high ground. Morton tightens his grip on the M1 Garand slung across his chest. Weeks of hard fighting have worn the rifle's parkerized finish in small patches, but its action remains smooth. Reliable. Deadly. He thinks of the diary from Tarawa. Of the line written in trembling script, "Their bullets come like rain." Every day since, Morton has seen proof of it. A sudden explosion erupts ahead, Japanese mortar fire slamming into the tree line. Branches snap and fall. The Marines scatter, diving for cover. Morton hits the ground just as shrapnel slices through the space where he stood moments before. Harper shouts, "Positions! They're testing our line." Morton scrambles behind a lava rock outcropping. Reeves slides in beside him. "Here we go again," Reeves mutters, loading a fresh clip. Then, through the thinning smoke, they appear, a long, dark line of Japanese infantry advancing between the trees. Some kneel in firing stance, others move forward cautiously, bayonets gleaming. Their rifles' Arisaka Type 99s catch glints of sunlight as bolts are worked frantically. Morton steadies his breath. The Japanese open fire first, sporadic rifle cracks, machine gun bursts, the stuttering barks of Nambu light machine guns. Their fire sweeps the Marine line, kicking up dirt, snapping branches, gouging bark from the trees. Marines return fire. The valley erupts with the rapid, rolling thunder of hundreds of M1 Garands firing in overlapping waves. The air vibrates with the tempo, steady, relentless, faster than the mind can fully register. Morton fires 3 shots before the Japanese nearest him can chamber their second. Reeves fires 4 in the same span. The pattern repeats across the line. Garands bark in staccato bursts. Clips eject with ringing pings. Fresh ones slam home. The tempo builds. And builds. And builds. The Japanese advance falters, their firing sequence disrupted by the slow, punishing cycle of bolt-action reloads. Morton sees it happening, riflemen lifting their weapons to fire, only to hesitate, exposing themselves for a fraction of a second too long before being cut down by rapid American fire. Morton fires at a group attempting to flank the Marine position. His shots 2, 3, 4 strike precisely. He reloads and fires again. The rifle feels like an extension of his body now, responding instantly to thought and movement. No bolt to work. No pause between shots. Just action. Just survival. A Japanese officer, sword raised, tries to rally his men with a shout. Morton and Reeves fire almost simultaneously, and the officer collapses into the ferns. The counterattack begins to crumble. Morton sees panic ripple through the Japanese line. Their doctrine centered on the belief that individual bravery and aggressive momentum could overpower American forces is breaking against the brutal reality of superior firepower. A young Japanese soldier drops behind a boulder, frantically cycling his bolt. Morton sees his hands shake. The rifle jams slightly, sand, sweat, and fear combining into a deadly delay. The boy struggles, slamming the bolt forward. Morton fires once. The shot is clean, mercifully quick. The valley grows quiet. The Japanese pull back, leaving behind bodies, broken rifles, and scattered equipment. Then Morton notices something: a notebook lying beside a fallen sergeant. He picks it up carefully, flipping through its pages. One line, written the night before, stands out: their rifles roar like thunder. We fire once, they fire many. No chance to breathe. No chance to rise. Morton closes the diary slowly. Reeves leans beside him. Same lesson, different island. Morton nods. And they're learning it the hard way. Harper approaches, boots crunching on volcanic gravel. Get ready. Word is the next ridge is even worse. Morton shoulders his Garand. Saipan stretches before him: dense jungle, sharp cliffs, fortified caves filled with defenders who once scoffed at American rifles. But day after day, battle after battle, that laughter has died away, replaced by disbelief, frustration, and fear captured in diaries never meant to be read by enemy eyes. Morton adjusts his helmet and steps forward. The war is far from over. But the myth surrounding the bolt action's supposed superiority has been shattered, obliterated by 8 rounds fired faster than an empire expected, faster than their doctrine could withstand. And as the Marines push deeper into the heart of Saipan, the M1 Garand continues to speak in its unmistakable voice: fast, loud, unrelenting. The rifle they once mocked, now rewriting the battlefield in fire and steel. The Japanese once laughed at the M1 Garand, but the battlefields of the Pacific proved the truth in fire and steel. If you found this story compelling, give the video a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more untold World War II histories. Your support helps us bring these incredible stories back to life.